Byron. It is 4 o'clock on August 2nd, 2021. I welcome all of you. So happy you're here. And we officially open this meeting of the Conway City Council. We have Matt Dawkins from Seacoast Church, who will lead us in the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Let's pray. God, thank you for this city and these leaders. And I just pray in this short time we have together that we would be thankful, that we can gather. And God, I just pray that what we talk about today and the decisions that we make, that all of it would honor you and glorify you. Thanks for hearing our prayer. And in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Matt. We'll begin with item 3. First, Madam Clerk, have we satisfied the requirements of the Freedom of Information Act? Thank you so much. Item 3 is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion? Mr. White?
May I move that we approve the agenda?
Is there a second? Mr. Goldfinch? Thank you. We have a properly seconded motion. All in favor with a show of hands, please. Motion carries unanimously. And now relative to the consent agenda, is there a motion? I'm sorry, I don't know who was first.
Mayor, I'll make a motion
Please.
to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second? Ms. Timms?
Second the motion.
A properly seconded motion to also approve the consent agenda. All in favor with a show of hands, please. Motion carries unanimously. We're now at item 5, which is public input. This is an opportunity for anybody to approach this council about just about anything. The one exception is anything that has to do with an individual employee that would need to be taken up in a more private setting, of course. We will invite people to come to the podium. I know some names of people who told us in advance that they would be here. I will call on them first. Please know that you'll have 5 minutes to make your presentation. Usually, public input is not interactive. We may not be prepared for something that you bring up, but if there's some answer that we can give, we'll do that right away. So with the opening of public input, I'm first going to call on Mr. Joe Parler from 4178 Bradford Drive. As he comes forward, I'll just remind whoever speaks, is he not present? Well, whoever does get to come, if you'll please speak directly into the mic. The acoustics in this room make it really difficult for people in the back to hear you. And we want you to start with your name and address, please. Ms. Laura DeLandro, please, would you come forward? I have your address as 1402 Live Oak Street, Conway.
It's 402.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hi, good afternoon. Folks, I just want to first thank you for letting me speak. Thank you for letting me speak today. I am Laura DeLandro. I live right down here on Live Oak. I'm here today to maybe have a couple things explained as far as the fireworks ordinance versus the noise ordinance that I found. 4th of July was pretty rough in our neighborhood. Telephoning numerous times to the non-emergency, as well as unfortunately a 911 call. We had fireworks for 6 days straight, well into 2 o'clock in the morning. I never had a police officer come to my home, not even after the 911 call. I did have a wonderful City of Conway police officer call me on Tuesday, the 6th. She was finally responding. She was in the area and was doing paperwork and said she would sit in the area in case anything were to happen. I'm concerned because the 911 call was made because I had fireworks landing on my roof, landing in my yard that were still smoking. I'm just concerned with that. I'm not sure. I know that they were only legal on 4th of July, but we had 6 days of continuous fireworks well after midnight and numerous calls to the 911, to the non-emergency. No one ever showed up. No one came by my home. The neighborhood continued, like I said, for hours after. I'm only concerned because Labor Day's coming. And that's not one of our approved days for fireworks, but in my neighborhood down there in Jamestown, doesn't really seem to affect them. I did read in the ordinance where there, the times, the hours for Christmas Eve and 4th of July, but I didn't note any penalties or fines for any of the infractions. And I was just concerned if there are any. I'm not really sure. I didn't find any myself. But other than that, I am just concerned. I feel like the city, the residents asked and begged back in 2017 for this privilege. And I feel like they've misinterpreted what you have given them. And like I said, in my neighborhood right down the street, could be a Tuesday in March. They're shooting them off. So I am concerned about Labor Day coming up. And I was just wondering who would be responsible at that point if there was personal injury, property damage. I don't think that any one of my neighbors would willingly admit that they were the ones that shot the fireworks off. So,
In the absence of the police chief, I'm going to ask Mr. Emmerich to give you his business card
no problem.
so that you can contact him directly. I think we'll be able to answer your questions and to get some better enforcement in your community.
So that's really all. I just think that maybe we could take pause from our neighbors in North Myrtle Beach. They instituted their fireworks this year. They started communicating in the spring. They do have hefty fines in North Myrtle Beach. And from what I read, they didn't have any problems this year. So, but that was my only concern. Like I said, Labor Day's coming, and if you want to show, you have my address. So, but it is discouraging. We do have some people in our neighborhood that put signs up to please be respectful of their PTSD status. That was obviously disrespected as well. Like I said, I'm just concerned if there would be property damage, where would the liability start and stop? Would that be us as the homeowner? Just want to know how this would be enforced on a more regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you
for
so
your time.
much. And I'm sorry you've had that issue come up. Jeff, is our timer operable? Okay. So you'll let me know. All right, very good. Thank you so much. We now have Mr. Cedric Blaine Spain. I know it would be a Kate's Bay Road address. If you would give us the rest of that, please, Mr. Blaine Spain.
Good afternoon, Her Excellency, Madam Mayor, to distinguished council, Cedric Blaine Spain, 3454 Kates Bay Highway, Conway, South Carolina. On Monday, July the 19th, this august body brought up a topic of COVID relief funds, officially the American Rescue Act of 2021. The historic Whittemore High School was referenced concerning the city's possible demolition of that building. Today, we have with us former students, faculty, family members, friends, and others of the stakeholders of the community here with me, so it wouldn't be a challenge against security. Instead of standing, may I have them raise their hands, Madam Mayor?
Absolutely.
Would you please raise your hand, those that are in the building that are here for Whittemore High School, our family and friends of Whittemore High School? There are others that are outside in their vehicles because of COVID. They are afraid together in large crowds. So we thank them for that. The historic Whittemore Elementary School is not only a historical landmark, having been one of the several equalization schools built in the early 1950s, to circumvent the inevitable desegregation ruling by the Supreme Court, Brown versus the Board of Education. It is also the academic, social, and cultural cradle of the African American community here in the Conway, South Carolina. As a historical site, it is among those places being recognized, sustained, and celebrated by the Federal Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor Commission the important historical contributions of the Gullah Geechee people. The historic Whittemore Elementary School was once the heart of the Whittemore Race Path community and the repository, of many of the fondest memories and the place where young lives were molded into productive citizens. In 2017, this body proposed that the historic Whittemore Elementary School site was the restoration and renovations of the old school into a community center with a history room, social service, learning classes, recreation, arts, music, business development, housing, etc. Patience has been exercised by the community in light of the pandemic restrictions and other extenuating factors. The community has not been apprised of the studies, assessments, and reports that the city is operating, to which their conclusion about the feasibility of the 2017 historic Whittemore Elementary School restoration and renovation project. It has been stated that the remediation and the abatement of the asbestos mold is extremely expensive and cannot be justified. Does it follow that it is therefore impossible to do these things? The community has not been engaged in the decision-making as we were in 2017 when you brought public input meetings to the community. The process we are now blindsided by decision to use COVID relief funding, using them to possibly demolition the historic school. Is it not possible to halt this execution of the demolition in order to involve the entire community in decisions regarding this historic elementary school? Our community feels disrespected, disregarded, blindsided, and hoodwinked by the paternalistic actions of the city. We are frequently called upon to do the reasonable thing without regards to our desire, our needs, and our culture. Please respect us as the tax-paying, law-abiding, otherwise contributing citizens that we are. Therefore, we are requesting the following: that the city halt the demolition of the historic Whittemore Elementary School. We revisit the 2017 proposal. Share the studies of the assessments and other documents of how the city reached the decision to possibly demolish this building. Review other alternatives acceptable by the community for the establishment of the community center that can provide valuable services to the residents. There's a quote that says, "If you are silent about your pain, then they'll say you enjoyed us killing you." Sometimes I feel discriminated against, but it does not make me angry. It makes me merely astonished. How can anyone deny themselves of our rich heritage and history on the other side of town? Then it comes to a point in life, it is beyond me, that we then ask the question, because the question is asked. There are years that ask this question, and years then answer. Where will you find yourself? What imprint will be upon your heart and the legacy that you leave behind as a government official of this body? Where will you be? Good, bad, or indifferent? What side of history would you be on if you allow one side of history to be demolished while you continue to maintain the other side of history in a city united by diversity? Thank you for this opportunity, and I yield back. God bless you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on that subject? I think there's been a consensus by your raising your hand that was the position that you take. I knew that there was some concern about what has been reported in the newspaper, and I've asked our city administrator to be prepared to give you a general overview of where we are and how we came to this. Mr. Emmerich.
Some of this will be kind of repetitive based on the last statement, but to kind of bring you up to speed on where we are now, how we've gotten here, I want to go back through some of the timeline briefly and just kind of get to where we are now. Horry County Schools first gave the property to the city in 2017, and at that time, the school district had done an assessment of the school and determined that the only path forward was demolition. They provided the city with their demolition report and the estimate of cost for the demolition with the gifted property, which was approximately $650,000 to demolish the property. After initial assessments, it was determined that the largest portion of the school would certainly require demolition. There were two buildings, a small one and a larger one. The larger one is the one that was more damaged from Hurricane Matthew. That was back in 2016. The hope was that the smaller building could be preserved and renovated using CDBG funds, Community Development Block Grant funds given to us by the federal government through HUD. Two community meetings were held in early 2018 to gauge the community interest in this idea. The takeaways that we heard from the community was that it was not so much the building that was important, but that the story of the building and of the community was told. The building was condemned by the city in late 2019 as a hazardous building. CDBG is a federal source. It requires review from all governing authorities, including the Department of Archives and History. Archives and History determined that we could not use federal funds to demolish any portion of the school buildings. And if we demolished any portion, we could not use federal funds to renovate any part of the remaining buildings. This process took us many months to uncover and going through the review, and the city spent close to $20,000 coming to this conclusion. In March of 2020, at the budget retreat, Mary Catherine Hyman presented these issues to council. At this meeting, staff asked council to consider defederalizing the Whittemore project and proceeding with demolition. Our architects determined that restoring the school could cost upwards of $14 million. At this meeting, council agreed to defederalize Whittemore, repay CDBG funds already expended, and work toward demolition. However, funding for demolition was not included in the 2021 budget. At the budget retreat of 2021, this last March, Whittemore was again discussed. Staff presented a timeline for proceeding with a public-private partnership as a possibility, including a community center and housing as potentially as a planned development district. We also discussed having additional public meetings, and council determined at that time that the will of the community was clear from those earlier meetings, and additional public meetings would not be productive or fair to the community members. However, no funds were allocated for demolition, despite that still being identified as the path forward. Today, the roof will need to be completely removed. The roof membrane is made of asbestos. It is called friable, which means it's been compromised. It is not easily removable now. It's now ingestible. So when you enter that building, you need to wear a full Tyvek suit and respirator. Also, you have to cover your shoes and any other part of your body or person that might be coming into contact with the air. It is that bad in the building. Every bit of that roof material needs to be removed. Every window is now broken. There is no central heat or air in the building. It's riddled with mold and other asbestos material. There is no option for that building but demolition. We have the ability now to find the funding and remove the hazard and begin working towards something that the community can be proud of. But that is only if we proceed with demolition, because there is no other saving grace for the school. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't know what to expect the request to be. Mr. Blainsbane, do you still find reason to request that there be a community meeting? I'm sorry.
Madam
Do you
Mayor,
think it would be advantageous to still have a community meeting based on what you just heard?
yes, because you see all over the city, everything else, several schools, and I referenced in the speech.
Sir, and I'm
You just
afraid
want
I
me to say
can't.
yes, yes.
Yes or no? Yes,
Yes.
sir. Thank you so much. I think that that's something we'd be able to do. Thank you so much.
May I say this? They are preserving schools all over.
Oh, yeah.
They just, McCallahan in Florence just renovated their building that's 100 years old. Where there's a will, there's a way. And we're asking if you would come back to the community and at least let the stakeholders of the community have a say so, we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else present to speak under public input on any subject? There being none, Mr. Goldfinch? Is it Mr. Hyman?
I'll second Mr. Goldfinch's motion.
A properly seconded motion to close public input at this time. All in agreement with the show of hands, please. And motion carries unanimously. Item 6, special presentations. And these are presentations of longevity awards among City of Conway employees. Mr. Emmerich.
In 2011, the city of Conway created a program to recognize our employees based on their longevity in increments of 5 years with the city. Tonight, we're pleased to have a long list of employees celebrating that milestone with us tonight. And I brought the wrong paper. Give me 1 second, Mayor. Could read my admin report early, but we're going to start with some of our 5-year employees tonight. We've got Timothy Patrick. Our building department is Tim here. All right, come on up, Tim. Tim was hired by the city in July of 2016 as a sanitation driver, heavy equipment operator in our solid waste department. He was promoted to heavy equipment operator 2 in 2019 and promoted to a building maintenance technician in our building department also in 2019. Tim, come on over. Congratulations on 5 years in the city. This is just something from the city for you. Picture over here. Also celebrating 5 years with us tonight is Nicholas Catino from our police department. Nick was hired by the city in July of 2016, was promoted to patrol officer in December of 2016, senior police officer in 2018, and promoted to senior master police officer in 2020. Congratulations, sir. Thank you very much. Raphael Dawson. Mr. Dawson was hired as a utility trades worker in 2016 and promoted to utilities crew leader in 2017 with our public utilities department. Mason Simpson, also celebrating 5 years with the city, hired in 2016 as a temporary summer helper, promoted to public utilities trades worker 1 in July of 2016, and promoted to pump mechanic in 2018. Thank you, Mason. Celebrating 10 years with the city tonight is Cynthia Bryant. Cynthia is in our building department now, and she was hired in 2011 as a custodian and has been a great asset. She also cleans my coffee cup every morning, which she thinks goes unnoticed, but I really appreciate it. Also celebrating with us tonight is Glenn Guyette, 10 years. Is Glenn here? He's out. Glenn is celebrating 10 years, but we'll celebrate him at another time. Celebrating 15 years with us is Greg Rush. Greg is in our building department. He was hired in 2006 as a building inspector, was promoted to our code enforcement officer in 2018, and in 2009, he was our public service employee of the year, and he just got married last week. Congratulations, Greg. And finally, celebrating 20 years of the city is Mark Bobbitt. Detective Mark Bobbitt, come on up. He's hired in 2001 as a senior master police officer, promoted to corporal in 2012, and promoted to detective in 2015. Congratulations, Mark.
Next on the agenda is item 7, public hearing and first reading of ordinance ZA 2021-0816A, an ordinance to annex approximately an acre of property located at the corner of Culture Road and Cochran Street, PIN 32515010002, and request to rezone from Horry County Residential to City of Conway Neighborhood Commercial. Ms. Harden.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is as you said, proposal to annex and rezone property at the corner of Cultural Road and Cochrane. Do you guys have a clicker, or do you want to go on with me? Sweet, go along with me. So the property is shown in light blue on the map on the screen. You can just barely see it, but it's right above the corner of pink. That corner is Cultura Road and Cochrane, in the area of Cultura and Cochrane. The property is currently vacant. I went out to that property today to get an eye on it, and across the street, kind of catty-cornered across the street, is an existing commercial use a Sun House convenience store and gas station. The other properties around it are immediately around it are vacant. Although excuse me, first time, little jitter.
Take your time.
Although the comp plan defines it as low-density residential on the future land use map, there is an appropriation for this to move forward with the requested zoning, because the properties around it are either in a commercial use in the county or commercial zoning in the county, or as the property across the street where you can see that it's vacant and has a kind of a semicircular design in the middle, that is also zoned for commercial. This neighborhood has a lot of community homes nearby that could benefit from some additional places to purchase their needs. And so when looking at the neighborhood commercial items that's allowed in that zone, it relates to things that neighborhoods need. It's for small scale retail and service uses. It's for entities that can be easily walked to or driven through on the way home or on the way out to work. And that scale would fit in with this neighborhood in our opinions. And the Planning Commission recommended approval.
Thank you, ma'am. This is first a public hearing. Is there anyone present who would like to speak either in favor of or against this annexation? Mr. Stanley, would you come forward, please? Give us your full name and your address. And remember the microphone so the people in the back can hear you, please.
My name is Henry B. Stanley. I live at 2604 Cochrane Street, Conway. And the reason why I oppose this from residential to commercial is because, number one, I have an aunt that's 106 years old that live right across the street from that property. And we don't want any more traffic coming in there. Because, usually commercial, at one time, they say one thing, you never know what's going to happen down the line. And it usually attract the wrong type of people lots of time. And plus, this is a residential area that we've been there for years. And none of us was aware till we saw a sign go up that y'all want to rezone it. We got a letter later after the sign went up, which I think was unfair, without talking to the members, the people that live in the area. And we oppose that, and like Sheila mentioned, that the property for that subway station was across from it. It's not across from it. It's down the road and on the corner. This is the property she's referring to is two areas, one on the corner and the one that's next to her. But the one we rejected was because of the residential area and the one that we have older people in the community, and we don't want to bring any more crime or any more traffic to the area. A lot of traffic is not good for the area. And that's the reason why we were opposed. We want to stay residential like it is now.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Yes, sir, please come forward. And if you'd also start with your name and address, and be careful with the microphone. I forget mine often.
Yes, my name is Daryl Stanley, and I live in that same area at 2608 Cochrane Street. I oppose also because the Cochrane community is one of the oldest communities, Black communities in the area. And in fact, that area that you're talking about zoning is not even in the city limits, I believe, because we're not in the city limits as far as the whole community. So my question is kind of, Is the city going to zone something that's not in the city limits first? In that community, it's a residential community. About 5 houses down is the Greater St. James AME Church. So it's on the corner of our church in the middle of our community. So we do not want a residential. We already have one across the street, which is the Sun House, which remind you, approximately about 5 years ago, we had a murder there. So we don't want any more, nothing but residential in that neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else, please? I think I know who you are, but just in case I'm wrong, yes, ma'am. Please. Marjorie.
My name's Marjorie Stanley Franklin. My mom is the 106-year-old that resides in the house right across the street from where they rezoned it at. And it is a danger to have commercial properties coming in there. In that case, they would be using the same road that she walks up and down when she gets a chance to. And we don't want her to get injured using that by having some kind of commercial properties coming in there. And that is a residential area. It has been a residential area since I was born, even before I was born. My grandfather had a great big old farm there, you know, and to have a commercial come in there, and I think the mayor and Larry probably knows about the area that they're talking about. And they do have across the street, around the corner up there, they have a place that called the Sun House, like my son who just spoke said, was a murder there. And I also see that they have across the street from the Sun House, they've also zoned that off for commercial properties. So why bring commercial property into a residential area when you have this old area across the street already that's already zoned off a commercial area? So my concern is, you know, we are going through a lot as it is, even with a lot of traffic coming through the area as is, that would just bring more traffic into a residential area.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Ms. Harden, could we ask you just a couple of questions, please? I thought that we were talking about the corner lot, but
You're right. It's adjacent to the corner. The area outlined in blue is one lot over from the actual intersection corner. And so when I say corner, I'm thinking in general, but specifically, they're correct. It is not specifically the corner property. And they're also very correct that the property across the street that is vacant is already zoned for neighborhood commercial and has not been developed. They're also correct that the street that they're on is residential. I went up and down it about an hour ago. And it is quiet. It also has no sidewalks, and it's not wide enough for a larger vehicle to turn around without impeding into someone's private property, because I had to drive into somebody's driveway to turn around. So yes, they're absolutely correct on all of those counts. As far as it being outside of the city limits and the request being to rezone, this is I probably did not properly announce the project as an annexation and rezoning at the same time. The request has been from the property owner to bring it into the city and to give it a zone at the same time. And that's what we're talking about now. So it's not just the rezoning, but it's to bring it into the city limits and rezone it. And that's part of the discussion that we're having now. And of course, this being a public hearing, this is absolutely the place for you to give your input and to let us know how you feel about it. And I greatly appreciate that you stand up to do. Beg your pardon? No, I'm staff.
She's our planner. So one other thing, Ms. Harden.
I got a little bitty house.
Are you in a position to speak to where sidewalks will be as a result of the new residential area?
I would like some assistance from that, seeing that this is day 11. I'm assuming that it would be along Cultural Road, excuse me, but would we also require that along the residential side? We would also require to get along the
All street
residential side.
frontages. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Raymond?
I noticed there was a for sale sign on the corner lot.
Yes, there
Is it
is.
the same landowner?
No.
Ms. Timms?
If I'm not mistaken, across the street in the little white triangle with circle in the middle, that's also going to be commercial?
Yes, that's it's zoned commercial. So it has no land plan with us currently, but it is zoned for neighborhood commercial. neighborhood commercial. Correct. That property is shown in that pink triangle on the screen where the two roads intersect. It's at that little peak, and that is the limits of the city boundaries at this time. The request is to cross Cultra, with this property being annexed in and rezoned from the current zoning in the county of MSF10 to neighborhood commercial.
Mr. Emmerich.
If appropriate at this time, would you close public hearing before continuing discussion?
Mr. Goldfinch. Thank you, sir. Right. We have properly seconded motion to close the public inputs portion of this discussion. All in favor with a show of hands, please. Motion carries unanimously. Ms. Harden, I'm sorry. And I want everybody to understand
need
that
the
I'm really
exercise.
putting her on the spot.
I need
This
the
is-
exercise. It's
she's
good. Let's
brand
go.
new.
I'm ready.
Are you in a position to be able to speak to the kinds of commerce that are allowed in neighborhood commercial as opposed to like
Yes.
highway commercial?
Yes, absolutely. Conveniently, my fantastic staff, by the way, thank you very much. I have a fantastic staff. They put together a list of the permitted uses and the conditional uses in the neighborhood commercial zone. And some of the ones that go through include things like advertising agencies and administrative offices, engineering and surveying offices. They tend to be businesses that need a space for an office to interact with their clients. It can also include a dentist or a doctor's office, a religious institution or a religious institution office, beauty shops, dance, pharmacy, shoe repair, laundromat, convenience store, such as the Sun House, which is across the road, across Oak, is it? Thank you. Ooh, road trip helps. And the grocery store, an ice cream shop, a newsstand, produce, clothing stores and antique stores, hobbies, gift shops, tobacco shops, bookstores, musical instruments and repairs, a florist. These are all things that you might see when you're walking through a neighborhood in a more urban area, things that people need on the way to or from. A furniture repair and furniture showroom are two of the ones that might take more space because of the need for the square footage and the size of what they're selling. Appliances and computers as well. A fitness center would be allowed, and at the very bottom is a hotel motel. Now that would be under the guidelines that are in the neighborhood commercial zone, like the setbacks and the size. Conditionally, you could have facilities that help our most vulnerable neighbors, like adult daycare, daycare facilities, child daycare, community support, funeral homes, and teen clubs. On condition only, you could have a bar, nightclub, or tavern, but that is a condition only, and then a sidewalk cafe.
Thank you so much. Mr. White?
Due to the fact that Miss Stanley is 106 years old alone, I would just say that they should not go there in that area. That has been a quiet neighborhood for years. I don't live there, but I know the folks that do live there. But I just want to say that publicly, that just because she's the next door neighbor to this thing, consider that being your mom or your grandmama or your great grandmama, whatever she could be to anyone.
I noted the
would say
house
no.
when I drove through, it had a red, is that the one with the red C on the outside? The house that has the red C is where the lady walks? Yep. Yeah. So yes, and it is very close to the place where there might be an interaction.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Hyman?
Mayor, I'm familiar with that area too. I grew up fishing in some of my great uncle's ponds back there. My in-laws live on Culture. I tend to agree with y'all. I think that, looking at it, the property that is on the corner that's next to it, that's not here, has already been zoned neighborhood commercial. Mayor, I'd make a motion that we deny first reading.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second? Mr. White? I'm sorry. We have properly seconded.
Excuse me.
We have properly seconded motion to deny first reading of this ordinance. All in favor of the show? Sure. Absolutely.
Is there anything on the, I guess I would call it north side, so the subject property on that side of Ultra, we don't have anything in the city That's all county, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so
And just behind there, it's vacant up to the next house that has accessed off Cochrane Road.
So basically, Coltra can sort of be the perimeter for everything.
Right now, it is serving as perimeter, yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments before we take a vote? Mr. Hubbard?
The yellow is allowed in MSF 10.
Yes, it's single family 10 with multifamily and manufactured home. No, not much, but multifamily. Is it 10 units per acre? Is that what the 10 is? 10,000 square feet per lot. So it's very, very akin to the residential zones R1, R2 here.
So we deny this.
Then-
They'll stay in the county.
Yes.
Multifamily.
Well, they'll stay in the county with whatever the county has zoned, yeah, unless they rezone there. In which case, there should be a sign in the yard again and notes going about, and everyone will have an opportunity at the county if that were going forward.
So are you saying that the county's rules are less stringent than those in the city?
No, I'm saying that
saying-
the applicant, if the applicant wants to go forward with the rezoning and the annexation and rezoning fails here, they also would have an opportunity to rezone at the county, and I'm trying to make sure the community is aware that if that comes up, you'll see signs that say county zoning rather than city of Conway
Right,
zoning.
but I'm sorry, my real question is there any, would the county allow less stringent uses than the city?
I do not know how the county operates that way, but I think our rules are better. How about that?
Okay, well, Mr. Bellamy's here. He's a county councilman. I'm going to break all the rules and allow him to give some input.
Good
Mr.
afternoon.
Bellamy,
Warden Bellamy,
welcome.
Horry County Council, District 7. As the mayor stated, once they vote on this, denied, the property remains in the county. The individual owner does have an opportunity to submit an application to Horry County Planning and Zoning to rezone the property. And then it comes to the county, and we have, the city, you have what, 2 readings?
Yes,
Oh, we have three. Two, okay, in the county, we have 3. So therefore, if the property owner would like to pursue that, we would have to submit an application to the planning and zoning, first reading, second and third. And we will review that and make a decision on it. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so
Yes.
much. Mr.
Your question.
Goldfinch.
Belly, question for you. For their benefit and understanding, can you explain what can go there right now in the county without question, without permission?
It's currently zoned MSF 10, so it's multifamily, single family, 10,000 square foot lots.
It's actually, I think it's
Yeah,
mobile homes. Mobile homes at 10,000 square foot lots.
10,000 square foot lots.
Manufactured homes.
Manufactured homes. Yeah, at that location here.
But nothing commercial.
Nothing commercial. But they have to request to rezone it for commercial.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was going to be my point. If we deny it here tonight, they could amend the request and go back through, but not for the same thing. They could not come back for neighborhood commercial, but they could amend their request to come back to the city, still to annex into the city, but with a different zoning designation. If they want to be commercial, they'd have to stay in the county and go for it there.
I see.
It does create a little bit of a conundrum because if they develop, they're supposed to annex in. But because we're denying it tonight, unless they're going to amend it to come into the city, it'll be a little bit tricky to be able to manage.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's understood. Now there's a motion on the floor to deny first reading. All in favor, with a show of hands, please. Motion carries unanimously. Thank everybody. Item 8, first reading of ordinance ZA 2021-08-16B, an ordinance to annex approximately 0.8 of an acre of property located at 3317 Kates Bay Highway. Did I skip one? I'm sorry. I thought you were pointing out something to me. Kates Bay Highway, PIN 369-120-10009, and request to rezone from Horry County Residential, SF20, to City of Conway Low to Medium Density Residential District. I think we have some people that are leaving. We'll just allow them a chance to settle.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Ms. Rebecca Stanley, I hadn't seen you. Good to see you. Ms. Harden.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a request to annex and rezone a piece of property that needs to tie into the city of Conway water and sewer systems. It is for one lot for one house. The current zoning in the county is single family of 20,000 square foot per lot. And the proposal is to go to R1, the zoning district in the city of Conway that allows for the similar development. We have evaluated it and have no concerns, and the planning commission recommended approval.
Thank you so much. This is not a public hearing. Mr. Hammond?
Make a motion to approve first reading.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jordan?
I will second Mr. Hammond.
There were properly seconded motion to approve first reading of this request. Is there any discussion? Mr. White?
Yes, ma'am. Mayor, I just want to know if the residents in that area have been notified that this was happening? Or did you have to?
No, for this single family home, our organization is not required.
Thank you.
And that's because the use that's there is very
there.
much like the one that's already there.
Good.
And the comparison between the two zones are the same.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anyone else? We have a motion on the floor. All in favor with a show of hands, please. Motion carries unanimously. Moving forward to item B, 9B, first reading in ordinance ZA 2021-0816C to amend Article 2 definitions, Article 6 design standards, Article 10 subdivision and land development, Article 11 signage, and Article 12 nonconformities of the Unified Development Ordinance relating to signage requirements. How do you do, Ms. Hux?
Hi, good evening. So for the past year, staff has been working on revisions to the city sign ordinance in an attempt to simplify the sign process as well as the types of signs that are permitted. The proposed amendments will provide additional options for businesses, and it will also add clarity to what is already in the ordinance. So the proposed amendment includes several housekeeping amendments, additions to the definition sections of the ordinance to add certain types of signs, revisions or additions to the types of signs that are allowed, signs that do not require a permit, wall sign requirements, window sign requirements, and which zoning districts those types of signs are permitted. Also includes amendments to the political sign requirements, a deletion of the temporary sign section, and the addition of a billboard sign replacement program. Can you go to the next slide, please? All right, so on-post signs is something that we did not have in our ordinance. And basically, this is what would be allowed. Your max height would be 8 feet, and your max sign area would be 24 square feet. And landscaping shrubbery would be required around the base of the sign structure. Drive-through menu signs, these were previously just called menu signs, and they were only permitted for establishments or restaurants that had a drive-through window. Drive-through menu signs would be allowed only, they'd be allowed for other establishments such as a car wash or a dry cleaner. The size will still be limited to 6 feet in height and 15 square feet in area. If it's located on a wall, the maximum sign area would be 10 square feet. And go to the next one. This was previously included in the temporary signs. These are your political signs. Political signs are signs announcing political candidates seeking public office, political parties, and/or political and public issues on a ballot. The amendment would shorten the time frame for which political signs are permitted from 60 days to a maximum of 30. Political signs will still not be permitted within rights of way, and you can only have one sign per candidate or issue on a lot. All right. This next section, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to decide whether we should hear all of this first or.
I can wait.
Okay, all right, thanks so much.
All right. So just to get a little background on the elimination of the temporary sign section, The Good News Community Church out of Gilbert, Arizona, were cited for placing a temporary directional sign sooner than 12 hours before their qualifying event. The church claimed that the code abridged their freedom of speech, and after a district court and Ninth Circuit Court denied the church's motion, the case went all the way to the Supreme Court, who ruled in favor of the church and held that the provision could not survive strict scrutiny because the town couldn't claim that placing strict limits on temporary directional signs was necessary to beautify the town, while also allowing other types of signs that created the same problem, and that they hadn't shown that limiting temporary directional signs was necessary to eliminate threats to traffic safety, but limiting other types of signs was not. What the Supreme Court's decision established is that any sign ordinance with different rules for different categories of signs is content-based, as long as the categories are defined by the topic, content, or subject matter of the sign's message. What governments can do is regulate time, place, and matter, as they are considered to be content neutral. Eliminating the temporary sign sections of the ordinance wouldn't mean that people could put temporary signs anywhere. The city will still enforce the sign ordinance, which will continue to prohibit signs within rights-of-ways and/or signs that are not permitted. Go to the next slide. This is just an overview of the different types of temporary signs that we have, and you can see that we have different display times, different size and height requirements, and different times for which they can be allowed and where they can be placed. All right, go to the next one. All right, and finally, billboards as well as off-premise signs are prohibited in the city, and any existing billboards are considered non-conforming. There are approximately 87 existing non-conforming billboards in the city limits that are owned by sign companies and private business owners. A few years ago, staff began meeting with billboard sign companies to discuss the possibility of an exchange program in the hopes of reducing the number of billboards in the city limits. The amendment would allow a negotiated method of reducing the number of billboards in the city without jeopardizing the city's existing ban on new billboards, and would allow digital billboards by providing a framework for new digital technology through an administrative process, with the goal of a net reduction of billboards throughout the city. By providing an incentive to reduce the number of billboard structures, the visual landscape along roadways in the city could vastly improve. An amendment was discussed at a council workshop in 2019, where there were concerns expressed regarding billboard companies that had 3 or less billboards in the city that would not qualify for the sign replacement program. The concern was also shared by the billboard community, who said that it was an unfair advantage of the companies that did not have a larger presence in Conway. Some of the highlights of the proposed amendment: only properties that have an existing billboard are eligible. Along Highway 501 and Church Street, 3 billboards must be removed within the city limits in order to replace 1 with the digital face. For all other areas, 2 billboards must be removed in order to replace or convert 1 with a digital face. Digital billboards may not be located within 1,000 feet of another qualifying digital billboard on the same side of the road. Each billboard face proposed to be converted or replaced cannot exceed the number of faces on the existing billboard proposed to be converted to a digital face. And billboard removals will be tracked via a zoning permit. So this revised ordinance will allow staff the ability to permit and enforce with a clear, more concise understanding, and help reduce the amount of variance requests that have been brought before the Board of Zoning Appeals over the past several years. They'll also help provide a better understanding of the city's sign ordinance to applicants when reviewing our ordinance and applying for permits. We also had pointed out one thing that should be considered under signs exempt from permit procedures. That would be under to add another subsection for political signs, just stating that they would be subject to the provisions of section 11.4.19. That's currently not in the proposed amendments, and Councilman Hyman had brought that to our attention. It will be going to Planning Commission on August the 5th, and I will be happy to answer your questions.
I'd recommend that we start with the beginning of your presentation? I think that's where Mr. White had a question.
Sure.
I don't remember the
It was about
exact
political
topic.
signs.
I was that far along.
That's right there. The question was, it said, I think I said, it says they can stay up to 30 days, correct?
The proposal is to change it from 60 days, which is now permitted, to limit it to 30 days prior to the election.
Okay, once the election is over, that's my question is coming there. How long can these signs stay up? And, or if there's a fine for them remaining up?
7 days.
And what would happen if they're over 7 days?
If it's over 7 days, we do have a zoning officer who does go out and look for signs. So if an election had passed, she'll go out and do a sweep and just see if there's any signs, or if we get a complaint that there's still some signs that need to be picked up, we'll go out and pick those up.
And would the candidate not be fined or anything of that nature?
They could be, yes. If there's situations where people put a sign back after we took it down, we do have the ability to cite them.
And should that be in writing rather than if or maybe?
It's in the ordinance. It's a violation of the zoning ordinance. It would be subject to fine, yeah.
Just wanted to make certain.
Ms. Tim?
I have two questions. First of all, it can be a runoff. So if you're in a runoff, you don't have to remove your signs. How much time, what is it, 2 weeks between?
Yeah, so at the runoff, we would wait until 7 days after that has occurred. So if there is a
Everybody
runoff.
else has to get theirs down after the first election. Okay. Second question I have, when I first got on council way back young, we used to have signs on arms that extended over the sidewalks. And we, council, I don't know when or where we took them down because we don't have very wide sidewalks anyway. And are there rules about them going on in specific places where it might be difficult for people to walk?
Yeah, so if it's on a sidewalk, it's likely in the public right of way, which is not permitted. So they would not be able to put, even the what?
If it's attached to a building?
Are you talking about hanging, like projecting signs or, okay. So projecting signs are allowed. If you're talking specifically downtown, there are hanging or projected signs, but they have to meet an 8-foot clearance from the sidewalk. So if they're not 8 foot, then they would be in violation of that ordinance.
And where is that measure? To the bottom of the sign or?
The bottom of the sign. So the very bottom of the hanging sign, they have to be 8 foot to the sidewalk.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Goldfinch.
Mayor, I move that we approve first reading of said ordinance.
Is there a second? Mr. Hyman?
I'll second Mr. Goldfinch's motion.
We have a properly seconded motion to approve first reading of this ordinance. Is there any further discussion? There being none. All in favor with a show of hands, please. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much, Ms. Hux. Item C, first reading of ordinance ZA 2021-0816D, an ordinance to annex approximately an acre of property located on Sellers Road, PIN 33906030027, and request to rezone from Horry County Residential to City of Conway Low to Medium Density Residential District. Ms. Harden.
Yes, ma'am. This is another annexation in off the Sellers Road area in the Langston Heights subdivision. As people are needing to connect to water and sewer, we are requiring the annexation as the policy is. This is a R1 zoning district request, so it is equivalent to the SF 40 and is been recommended approved by the Planning Commission and by staff.
Thank you, ma'am. What is the will of the council? This is for Mr.
Mayor, I move
Mr.
to
Hubbard.
approve first reading.
Thank you, sir.
I have one quick question. It used to be that Sellers Road did not have water and sewer all the way around it, and that was why a lot of those didn't come in. Has that,
We've remedied that a few years ago.
that's all I have.
Mr. Jordan.
I will second Mr. Hubbard's motion.
We have a properly seconded motion to approve first reading. Is there any further discussion? There being none, all in favor with a show of hands, please. Motion carries unanimously. Item D, first reading of ordinance ZA 2021-0816E, an ordinance to annex approximately 2 acres of property located at the end of Jones Road, PIN 325-140-20065, and request a rezone from Horry County Residential to City of Conway Low to Medium Density Residential District. Ms. Harden.
Yes, ma'am. Staff has evaluated this request quite a bit, and the staff's recommendation on this particular annexation and rezoning is to deny. The request to deny is coming from our need to be able to access the property safely with public vehicles and public infrastructure. The road is very narrow and does not have the ability for trash or fire apparatus to turn around safely without going down to someone's private property. And that's not what we want to do. We don't want to send the trash truck out onto somebody's yard every time we pick up trash. So because of the width of the road and the access for our public service vehicles, we recommend denial.
I need to ask a question. If it is customary that a person who receives our water and sewer, who becomes contiguous to the City of Conway, would have to come in, if they're not allowed to come in by our doing, would they continue to have the double rates?
They do, yes.
All right, thank you so much. What is the will of the council? Mr. White? Yes, please.
This piece of property is also on the side of the Culture Road that is county now, correct?
Yes. It's very close to the
Yes.
Cochran Road that we discussed earlier.
Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
what I need.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Ms. Timms?
I make a motion, we deny this reading.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second? Mr. White?
I second.
A properly seconded motion to deny first reading of this request for annexation. Is there further discussion? There being none, all in favor with a show of hands, please. Motion carries unanimously. Just as a point of direction, Mr. Emmerich, there's come some concern about item 8 under consideration. Is it still allowed that a council member might move to remove or postpone that decision today?
It could be deferred, certainly.
Okay, awesome. All right. I move then that the consideration of reclassification of fire department positions be deferred until such time as there is further discussion and information sharing. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. White and Ms. Timms.
No question. Can we defer it to an executive session?
That's a good question.
It would have to be based upon specific employees to be able to be
Position.
deferred that way. In which case you could go into executive session right now to do that, or you can schedule it for one of the next meeting.
Frankly, I don't know enough about what we are going to be presented with to know whether or not it would entail a specific employee. Just generally, there's too much room for what might be presented.
Okay, let's boil it. Let's kind of figure out where we are before the next meeting and determine where it needs to go.
Thank you so much. So we have a motion on the floor to defer until another time. It's been seconded by Mr. White. All in favor with a show of hands, please. Motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to item B, consideration of a request for waiver of sidewalk requirements for Rob's Auto Body to be located at the corner of 9th Avenue and Church Street. Ms. Harden.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Your Honor. This is a request for a sidewalk deferral, as you said. Rob's Auto Body is relocating to the former Bilo at 901 Church Street, and they are requesting a waiver of the sidewalk requirements along 9th Avenue. As you can see in the image on the screen, the property is outlined in blue. On the right-hand side, the road that's going up and down is Church Street. On the parallel or intersecting, going left and right in a 45-degree angle or so is 9th Avenue. The property is surrounded by other commercial areas, obviously on Church Street. The red lines that you can see on the map are showing where sidewalks exist today. And you can see that there is no red line along this property along 9th Avenue. The request for the sidewalk deferral, staff has recommended against it for many reasons. One of the most important for me personally is that the neighborhood that this street, that 9th Avenue accesses behind the building and on further to the, well, layman's west, going out to the left, is a particularly, a neighborhood that has particular vulnerabilities and has difficulties. When you look at this, the vulnerability index by the CDC for the neighborhood, they have the highest vulnerability of socioeconomics, the highest vulnerability of transportation access, and highest vulnerability of home or housing stability. One of the things we want to make sure happens in a community is that they have stable housing. They get stable housing by being able to get to jobs. Jobs, if you can't get there by a vehicle, you have to be able to either walk or scooter or another alternative. Taking the sidewalk away from this area is specifically impacting that neighborhood's safety and ability to get to that intersection where there are more jobs available on Church Street. Now, there's nothing for it to connect to. That's something that people will point out, is that the property next door, or the one just west of it or just behind that, also does not have a sidewalk at this time. That is something we want to rectify in the future as well. That's part of the reason we have this policy to put in sidewalks as projects are upgraded, because we need to be able to connect and make those sidewalk connections at the time of the development or the redevelopment. That's what we take advantage of it at this parcel and at this property. In any property like it, you'll be seeing other properties in the future with the same request as you've seen in the past. But this one is a little unique in that it is at a very high speed intersection, a very high traffic intersection, and it serves a good bit of pedestrian population. So staff recommends denial.
Thank you,
The
Ms. Harden.
information in the report has the expense for that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
I move that we deny the request for waiver of sidewalk requirement. Is there any discussion or other questions? There being none, all in favor, let's show of hands, please. Motion carries unanimously. We are now at item 10, the city administrator's report.
I'll confess to earlier conversation on Whittemore was going to be in my administrative report, so it's greatly shortened from what it was. We met with members of South Carolina Emergency Management Division this morning to review the FEMA buyout properties to begin the process of closing out that grant, which is great news since I started that grant back in 2016 after Hurricane Matthew came through. So it's really exciting to be able to get to the point where we're talking about closing it out. To date, we've purchased, I think, 43 properties at somewhere in the neighborhood of $12 million, which is, you know, a lot of work to do. Camp Great graduation, which was supposed to be for tomorrow, has been canceled, and it will not be rescheduled as Camp Great was supposed to end this week anyway. Conway Superstar will be August 14th at 6 p.m. at McCown Auditorium. Mayor, I know you've got it on your schedule. We're very excited about it this year and hope to be able to bring it back after last year's not being able to do it. The National Night Out, which was scheduled for tomorrow at 4, has also been postponed to a later date, and we will let you know when that date has been determined. Camp Roar, which is hosted by Conway Recreation Department, it's their camp, the summer camp. They have a special presentation they've been working on all year, well, all summer. And they will have that on Friday at 4 o'clock at the Sports and Fitness Center. And you all are invited to attend if you have the free time. August 28th needs to be on your calendar for 10 a.m. That is the float event. It's a new event that we're trying this year. You make sure you bring your life jacket and a float and meet on the Riverwalk under the Main Street Bridge. And it's a great way to enjoy the river in a brand new way.
Now I have to confess, as I was talking, would you please repeat that last one?
August 28th, 10 a.m. Bring something to float on and a life jacket to under the Main Street Bridge. You will see more advertising coming on this, but it's going to be an exciting new event utilizing the Waccamaw River as a great way to send off the summer.
We'll talk about where one gets one of these flotation devices.
I got one for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Update on the city limits of Conway. We are now at 25.2 square miles, which, if the internet is to be trusted, makes us the largest city in Horry County. So there you go.
May I just add that in 1992, Conway was 6 square miles.
Yes. In 1999, I think, or not, sorry, 1990, we had 7,900 people, if my memory serves me.
About.
Yeah, and we're now close to 27,000. I also want to give a shout out to WXP, our contractors who have worked on the Big Ugly Wall, which no longer can be called the Big Ugly Wall. It doesn't look as big. It certainly does not look as ugly. It kind of made that corner look a whole lot more presentable. We've had a lot of questions about the new fees that were approved by council in this year's budget. To give you some reference to give this out to the community, the city spent $430,000 last year to light up street lights throughout the city. HOAs do not pay for the lighting of neighborhoods except for in those very rare cases when HOAs have installed lights in addition to what our policies will cover. This fee is for residential customers only, as the lights provide the greatest benefit to our residents, keeping their neighborhoods, roadways, and sidewalks safer after dark. The sidewalk maintenance fee applies to both residential and commercial users, as sidewalks are a direct benefit to primarily both users, allowing residents to walk safely within their neighborhoods and connect to commercial areas, directly benefiting both groups. And while there may be an ancillary of a benefit of both fees to other groups, it's very minimal, as both programs are designed to benefit our residents and our businesses respectively. There has been a terrible spike in COVID cases lately. I'm sure you've all followed this, but while the serious cases seem to almost be entirely affecting those without vaccinations, those of us who are vaccinated are not immune, and it's taking our toll on staffing again. As of Friday of last week, we had 4 employees out with positive test results. 5 were out in addition to exposure to those tests, and 2 additional quarantining due to family members with positive or waiting on test results. I just learned a few minutes ago that we have 1 more now out with a positive test and 2 more in quarantine. So that's just today happened. I think it's pretty safe to say that we all know someone who has died from COVID. We all know people who have had their lives upended by COVID, and there's a pretty sure way to keep it from happening again, and that's to get vaccinated. So this is my urging everyone to do that if they have not already taken advantage of that. And that's my report.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you.
Henry. Sure, absolutely.
Two questions.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. The question has to do with the lights and the sidewalk
Yes.
fees. I got a call about 9:30 Sunday night asking why do I have, not me, but why this person wants to know, why does she have to pay these bills if there's no lights nor sidewalks in her immediate area?
Well, if there are no lights in their immediate area, they need to contact the city and figure out where they live, because we have lights every, I think it's 600 or 800 feet on every street and at every intersection. So if there's one missing, we need to know where it is.
As well as no sidewalk.
And the sidewalks, we're working on that. As you know, adding sidewalks is very expensive, which is why we try to get them up front with development. That one little section of sidewalk we just reviewed, the cost to us to put it in would have been almost $11,000. So where we can put sidewalks in, we do. Where we can find funding, we do. And we use the sidewalk mitigation fee to put those in some neighborhoods where we have to. It's going to be one of those things where we have to add them continuously, but when we cannot maintain the sidewalks we have liabilities far greater than just maintaining the sidewalks.
If I might add to that, I live in a community with no sidewalks, but I benefit from there being sidewalks in other places that I walk. So we're just sharing the cost.
And the eventual goal for the city is to have every community connected by sidewalks. But if we don't have a funding stream to ever get there, we'll never get there.
Thanks, sir.
All right, thank you.
We'll move on to council input. And I think I always do this, but tonight I'm going to start with Mr. Hyman.
Just briefly, Mayor, to touch on what Adam said, I do think it's beneficial for us to put something out there, whether it's on Facebook or with the media. Same thing with stormwater stuff. Brandon Harrelson, our head of stormwater, sent me pictures the other day where they had been vacuuming out, doing preventative maintenance, and it was really, really good pictures. I mean, it showed how much buildup can happen over such a little bit of time. And that way I think that our taxpayers will know where the money's going. Second thing, I've been out of town a good bit, I guess either through work or vacation. But one thing I noticed in a lot of areas that have travelers is city maps. And Conway's getting to the point where you're starting to see more and more people coming from the beach that are here in Myrtle Beach on vacation and coming to the city. I think it might be beneficial to look into potentially doing that. There's so many places I've been that have outside maps and, you know, different shops, different restaurants, different areas, different historical stuff. I know we have some of those things down by the Riverwalk, but it might be good to kind of maybe look at doing something like that for the whole city, or at least the walkable parts. But that's all I've got.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jordan.
I'm good tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Thames?
I wanted us to comment briefly or together about the heat index. Are we opening buildings or anything such that people that don't have any means of getting cool can go?
We have not specifically discussed it, but we always allow the lobby area of our public safety building to be utilized for those who need to get out of the elements. We can put something out on social media to make sure that's clear.
Well, I think I would be hesitant to go someplace if I didn't know I could get in. I mean, I think I would want to know it ahead of time. And also something else that I think we could put out in the form of a pamphlet or something is what the policies are for our cemeteries that are city cemeteries, because I had a call today and they don't know how they get monuments cleaned. Do we clean it? Oh, I'm sorry. Sure. Thank you. I'm trying to get some sort of policy out about our cemeteries. We have a lot of people that do not live here that own property in the cemeteries. They're managed by the city, but it's owned by individuals. And I do believe that they aren't sure who does what, and I didn't know either. The question was, who cleans monuments? Is there somebody that they can call that we would recommend? You know, various and sundry questions. I think perhaps if we got with cemetery committees and let them work up some sort of brochures, it would be helpful to people that, because most of these people don't live here now and they don't know how to get information.
If there's an easy answer, just contacting either on myself or Timmy Williams would be the way to go. I would refer them to Timmy and he'll be able to answer their questions.
Well, they call me because they know me, and then you've been on vacation, so and I didn't say call Adam. Thank you. Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Thames. Mr. White?
Yes, I have a long list. First of all,
I can send you to a last if you like. I'm joking.
no. Somebody else might say it. The renting moratorium, that has ended as of yesterday, the 31st.
I don't know, the eviction moratorium?
Yes.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with it.
Okay. I was asked that yesterday, so I'm asking for information as how we can find out about this so that they can, you know, who to contact.
I can tell you the answer is yes, but I don't know any details on it. It's not something the city is involved in. All that goes through the county courts.
Okay, thank you, sir. We voted to demolish also Smalls Radio and TV building, and I have been given some ideas about how we could possibly use that as a city building, or not necessarily city, but as an organizational building, maybe even to contract with a partner with Coastal or Georgetown Tech and use it as a technology building of some sort with computers, with, you know, for the community use, rather than destroying the building. So I just want to throw that out. Two other people from Conway that have done marvelous things, and I've been asked if we could consider giving them a key to the city, and that is Miss Vanessa Wyatt, Ella B. Wyatt. She's the director of NASA, and Barbara Hickman Wyatt. She is a employee at Apple, And so and I was asked if we could consider giving them a key to the city or some type of proclamation honoring them for their great work.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And what's the process of starting a neighborhood association?
An HOA or a crime watch?
Crime Watch.
Crime watch. The easiest way is to contact Darren Alston. Nope, sorry, it's Pierce now.
I'm sorry?
Man over your left shoulder, right shoulder, left shoulder.
Okay, thanks, sir. Thank you, sir. We're thinking about trying to reorganize one on the race path area, or they are.
Race path area.
I can reach out to them myself. Thank you. Thanks, sir. I'm good.
Mr. White, Mr. Goldfinch.
Mayor, I'm excited. A few weeks ago, when we were in the process of hiring or looking for our new planner, city staff administration came to us and they said, we think we've got a good candidate. And if you'll recall, I asked one question. I said, do they have a can-do attitude? That was all I asked. And this afternoon, I was logging on to my Ori News, and I saw an article, and I'm gonna read a quote because this is perfect. This just gets me so excited about where we're going. And it's from Mrs. Horton. And it says, if someone brings me a plan and I look at it, let's say it almost meets the code, I have the opportunity of saying, no, this doesn't meet the code, go back and fix it. Or I have the opportunity to say, yeah, I see what you're doing. This is great. This is a good start. This meets all the code. This is just the section that needs to be fixed. Just go and focus on this and come back and we'll be happy to work with you. Thank you. Because that's what, I'm gonna turn this. Because that's what we need. And that is a can-do attitude. And that says that we're open for business and that we want to go from here to here. So let's keep up that good work and that mentality. Thank you. That's all I've got there.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hubbard.
Very quickly, I just want to congratulate the mayor and the staff for the accolades we received at the Municipal Association. And why don't y'all bring our big trophy?
I think they're coming next meeting to present. We were kind of keeping that secret, Mr. Hubbard.
What he told me. It's big enough the mayor can use it for a flotation device. Or a stinker. That's all.
Thank you, sir. And I don't have anything to add. I'm just really proud that, well, no, I won't say any more about that. We'll have that come up at our next meeting. I'm really happy that we had so many members of the community here. And I want you to invite everybody to come more often. There are things that are done and said in our meetings that we don't get a chance to put out. The city had started having public meetings in communities a few years ago. And we started off with a lot of interest. People actually showed up, had questions, and we were able to work together. And over time, we had more staff members present than we had people in the community. So you can understand why we thought it wasn't worth our while to continue them. So as we're moving along one subject to another, it's hard to gauge what other people think about the importance of what we do. So if we ever miss taking the time in advance to get a message out to the community, then, you know, please charge that to our heads and not our hearts. There's no effort by this body to keep things secret from the community. And we try what we know to try, and sometimes we don't try it in time. For that, I give my apology. But we're glad you're here now, and please keep coming. There's always an opportunity to put in public input. There's always an opportunity to say what you think. And I'm certain that not just because of a potential vote being in place, that the people who sit on this council sincerely care about what our citizens care about. And we'll listen. We don't always agree. We don't always agree among ourselves. But the one thing we know for sure is that we all care about Conway and every community in Conway. So thank you for coming, and please come again. Bring people with you. And with that, I say, we are going to move downstairs for a workshop. We're going to discuss proposed amendments to Article 6, design standards of the Unified Development Ordinance, we call the UDO, to amend the height limit in the Central Business District, and an amendment to Section B, Chapter 3, Basics of Traditional Commercial Buildings, 3.4 of the Community Appearance Guidelines relating to height limitations in the Central Business District. And that last phrase concerning height limitations is all I can explain about this. You're welcome to join us downstairs in the conference room, after which time we will adjourn. So we look forward to you all coming downstairs, and again, thank you for being here. Those of you who are not coming, have a really good night.